Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing more of the +1 seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which whenever we play a unit, we will spawn a 1-power copy of that unit in the same row. And that allows us to play some pretty crazy combos, including one of the single strongest combos in the entire game. And although it has been abused for nefarious purposes in the past, today we are retrying what is one of the more creative and crazy decks we have ever played. So let's go give it a look. So today we'll be playing a Scoia'Tael Guerilla Tactics deck, and I know what you're thinking. Lids, please don't tell me you're going another Idarran plus Snowdrop deck. No, don't worry. This deck does not have Snowdrop, but it does have Idarran. Okay, but it's a crazy deck that uses Idarran for a much more wholesome combo, and not something that is just going to spam 300 points in 2 turns. Last time we played this deck, we had what was probably the single most amazing match I've ever had in Gwent, so if you haven't seen that, definitely check it out. So what we're looking to do here is on turn 1, we will likely play Idarran, and the reason why he's so broken in this event is because when you do this, his leader ability activates on himself, so he quite literally fills an entire row with copies of himself. Then you use your leader ability, Guerilla Tactics, to move some of those Idarrans to the other row, which means at that point, whatever unit you play next, you are going to basically fill both rows with a bunch of copies of that card. And so then the question is just, what is the most valuable card to create a bunch of copies of? And the abusable combo is Snowdrop. We made a deck for it a long time ago, in which I may have encouraged people to do it even more by allowing people to play it in 2 separate rounds, but that's an aside. Today, we are instead replaying another Idarran +1 combo that we did in the past, and that was creating additional copies of Madoc, and also creating additional copies of Milva, because they give us a lot of damage and still the ability to get these cards out from either our deck in the case of Milva or our graveyard in the case of Madoc whenever we meet certain criteria. When we do that though, they will gain Doomed, the status that destroys them when they get removed from the battlefield. So before we activate any of their order abilities, we need to first play Siegfried. That will get rid of all the Doomed, and then at that point, all of our Madocs and Milvas that we spawned in with Idarran, we can safely use the order abilities on, and they will still go back into our deck, or back into our graveyard, and we can resummon them back out in the future. So that is the key combo there, and then basically everything else is just either bombs to make it so that you can, well, more easily get Madoc from your graveyard back onto the board, or it's stuff that either moves yourself to give more room in a row to have stuff spawn in next to Idarran, or move your opponents so that you can proc Milva more easily with stuff like Nivellen, and stuff like Malena, and of course your leader ability, if you happen to have enough charges for that, you can also use that to move your opponents as well. The tricky thing with Milva, of course, is that you need to also find a way to trigger that death blow if you want to try to get Milva back into your deck, so she's definitely a little more of a challenge than Madoc is, but that's the idea there, and if you manage to pull it off, it is possible to get on the order of 9 or so Madocs or Milvas, or maybe a slightly smaller amount and get a little bit of both. The problem is, of course, primarily either board space, if all of your Idarrans do stay alive, because they take up a lot of room by themselves and there's only room for 9 cards in a row, or if Idarran starts to get destroyed, then do you have enough left to still create a meaningful amount of copies of Milva and Madoc. For what it's worth, when you do play these cards from your hand, you are, of course, going to get an additional copy of them, just from +1 alone, and it's not so relevant for Madoc, because Madoc will, once you use his order ability, go back into your graveyard, and you're not going to play him from your graveyard, whereas Milva, if you do play her from your hand, trigger the death blow and get her back into your deck, you might draw into some Milvas, and you play those from your hand, and that will, over time, lead to building up your total Milva count, because every time you do so, you're getting 1 more Milva. So that is technically another way to spawn in more copies of both Madoc and Milva. And that's really all there is to it. It means that we have a ton of damage, so basically we win by just preventing our opponents from putting up any points, or in a short round, in particular, if we can summon out all of our Madocs or all of our Milvas when our opponent doesn't have nearly enough time to keep pace with us, then that is also a great way to get the win. So let's go see it in action. Alright, so going up against monsters here, and we'll go first. Okay, so we have both Milva and Madoc in hand, and we can then use Curse Scroll to get Idarran if necessary, or Royal Decree, better yet. Okay, so this is looking good in that case, and we can use our bombs to help get Madoc, and in some cases, with the movement, Milva out more regularly as well. So that looks good to me. Do we even need Arcane Tome here? What would we be looking for in that case? I mean, more bombs, more regularly, but we might want to save that for a later occasion. Stygga Castle can give us some more movement, which is not a bad option. Let's stick with this. Let's stick with this. Okay, so it means we are going for the dreaded Guerilla Tactics Scoia'Tael. First turn, Idarran. Deliberately putting it in this row where we have our stratagem because we actually don't really want to flood our rows too much. It is the lack of row space that's going to limit the number of cards we can spawn in more so than our number of Idarrans. Okay, and it's Neckarat. Okay, they give bleeding to the one that already has higher base power, which they gave bleeding to one in the middle because I was about to use Samum wherever it is. Oh, do we have Samum? Oh, oops, we do not. Okay, we can use Samum to move some Idarrans, which I think we will need to do here, and we'll use Alzur's Double Cross. We will actually need this as well to get Siegfried out to purify when we create the additional copies with Idarran. So we do this, and we get Samum to move our Idarrans. We could also use Stygga Castle, but that's going to spawn in a bunch of Cat School Witchers, which we don't really want to be doing at this point. Where did Samum go? There you are. So now, let's put back Stygga Castle. Play the Samum. Destroy one of the Idarrans that was going to get destroyed anyway. Move the other Idarrans. Technically, we can use Guerilla Tactics as well. That is an option. Would be a little bit quicker, but it saves our Guerilla Tactics charges for later on, which means more capability to set up Milva. Okay, now, not a huge fan of the bleeding here. What we may opt to do is actually still use at least one Guerilla Tactics charge here, because then we can get 4 Idarrans and 3 Idarrans. And this one's going to go down this turn, but I think we'll settle for a bunch of extra. Do we prioritize Milvas, or do we prioritize the Madocs? I'm leaning toward Madoc. Let's go Madoc here. So that will give us slightly more Madocs, because we're going to lose some Idarrans, and it's also probably going to be easier for us to dump all of our Madocs than it will be for us to dump all of our Milvas. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 Madocs. This Idarran will get destroyed. And before we use these Madocs, because they have Doomed, which means they will get destroyed if we use their order abilities, we need to use Alzur's Double Cross into Siegfried to purify them. Then it is safe to use them, and that means we will get rid of any bleeding that we have, which, given how they're running a Vampires deck, does feel like that could be kind of useful. So this is what Alzur's Double Cross will be for, because Siegfried is our highest card now, and we will spawn in, one Sieg. Let's go. What is our best way to minimize the quantity of Siegfrieds? Purify everything. Spawn in the extra Siegfrieds, but now that means that we can actually use these Madocs without being at risk of having them get destroyed from the doomed statuses. So the Madocs are now safe. And obviously, that's a lot of turns of Cataclysm. So that should be pretty solid for us. Next, we'd like to use Milva, because we still have a bunch of Idarrans on the board, and so, technically we would have had to have used Milva before we did Siegfried. So yeah, we basically opted for Madoc instead of Milva here, for what it's worth. Yes, we can still play her from hand and get one extra copy that will not have Doomed, and that can be something that we put back into our deck. The other ones we will create, but they are not going to be ones that will go back into our deck because they'll have Doomed, so they will just get destroyed. So it's still not a bad option for us here, I don't think. Why don't we? Especially because plenty of turns of Cataclysm remaining, so no urgency to play additional bombs just yet. So why don't we Milva, and We have a death blow we can definitely trigger here. The other ones, we'll see if Cataclysm helps set something up. So let's play ya. So these all have doomed. So we should not prioritize getting the death blow on them. Although, in fact, what we could do is we could weaken some of you guys. Set up the death blow here with the one that does matter. And technically, we would probably prefer to get rid of the Neckarat. But now it's fairly likely the Cataclysm will do that for us. And it will. Okay, out for more bleed. And at this point, I mean, we could use a bomb and get most of our Madocs back. We might not have enough room for all of them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so we can fit 3 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we can fit 4 here. That's 7 total Madocs we can fit, but we have 9 in our graveyard right now, I believe. So it's not quite full value, but it is something. And we will create additional copies of whatever we opt to play here, which at this point, I mean, Gezras would be great, but it's still too early for his adrenaline to kick in here. It is still going to be worth something, but you know what? Maybe we'll go for a little bit of an early Gezras. So we have just about completely filled our rows, which means his movement will actually be limited here. Okay, and Sold Spear Tip, they don't have a ton of time for that to kick in here. That suggests they might be looking for this round to go a fair bit longer. We would like to play one more card so we get to Adrenaline 3, so these Gezrases will be doing more, and then we pass. Even if they can't move, they do still do their damage, they do still do their boosting. So, I think that means Trained Hawk is probably the most disposable, and rather than move one of their cards and get Milva out here when it's going to be perhaps a little bit difficult to trigger the death blow, I mean, we could do that. But just not really sure we want to go that route. Yeah, they have 1 power units. Could be targets for that, but the Trained Hawk is already going to take up pretty much all of the room that we have here. So, let me take a pick. So we pass here. And there are the Gezrases doing actually the opposite of what they tend to do. When the rows are full, they will boost our melee row and damage their ranged row. And we are planning to likely pass on our next turn, because those Gezrases will definitely do us a lot of favors. They will still play here, though. We'll try to remove some Gezrases. It'll be a little bit difficult to do, of course. Unseen Elder, that is a big commitment. Obviously, we played some big cards here, but the reason why we were willing to do so is because we like short rounds with the, with the Madoc and Milva carryover, but that Unseen Elder, dealing that damage based on the bleed that they already had was pretty big, as we just saw. So, how do we feel about that? We can get the Madocs back out if we really want, or Milva with Malena with movement there. So it's possible for us to destroy at least one Unseen Elder. In fact, Cataclysm is potentially going to be capable of doing that as well. I think our rows are not going to be full anymore, so we're probably back to boosting range and damaging melee, so that means Gezras is not going to take you out. Yes, leader ability could do it, but if we do that, I mean, that does mean we're going to have to play more. I think we still pass here. I think we do still pass here. Unfortunately, the Cataclysm does not hit Unseen Elder. It is still going to be a little tricky for them to catch us, I think, especially with the Blood Moon no longer active to facilitate additional leading synergies for them. Imlerith's Wrath, though, it's worth a fair bit. And there is the Old Spear Tip. And there's the effectiveness of those Unseen Elders. It's big. And it is enough. But they did play one more card than us in round 1, so that means, in theory, we might expect them to drive past here, and if they don't, then we have pretty crazy tempo, because playing any bomb gives us 9 Madocs on the board immediately, so it's going to be hard for them to outpace that. If we're looking for a throwaway, it could be the Trained Hawk. At this point, Marching Orders gives us probably Milva, which means we could get an additional Milva from that, as long as there's a card we can trigger that Death Blow on, so that's also potentially a decent option for us. I think this is probably a good mixture for us, though. It says we have a throwaway, we have bombs if we need them, Malena can help synergize with Milva if necessary, but really they should not be playing. Because we like short rounds much more than they do. I mean, presumably they have Regis, and that's going to be... It's going to have a lot of power at this point, a lot of base power. But even with that, I think we do... I mean, either of these destroy this one. Even this does. But... yeah... Let's go making a bomb. That's a little bit harder to make that work. It does also get Milva out here, though. That's perhaps a little tricky, because that does mean it's going to be hard to trigger these death blows here. They're all the Madocs. That was what I was planning around. But, yeah, we might just settle for no Milva and rely on Madoc from here on out. Okay, it's Flutter. They're continuing to push here. It's bold. And it does mean that we potentially still have a way to set up Milva here in a longer round. Because, let's see, if we damage by 2, it means we can get one of the Milvas back. Or we just trigger all these Cataclysms and see where that leaves us. At this point, Marching Orders gives us... what? Maybe a Sentry, maybe a Vrihedd Dragoon. We don't know for certain. We'd probably like for it to give us Milva if we do find a way to get her back into our deck, so I think we do this. And then I think we go Trained Hawk. Melee row. Damage. Might kill you with the Cataclysm. It's possible. But preferably, it drops you down to 1 point, which it does, which means you can get an easy death blow from this Milva, unless they go with their last leader ability charge, which I imagine they may end up doing. Okay, it's Orianna. She will be a powerful engine. Okay, so now we do have some row-lock cards, though, and we obviously can move them with Guerilla Tactics, which I think at this point we probably are going to want to do. That will drop you down to 1, so we can get the death blow on you and get rid of the bleed. That'd be nice. And then Northern Wind would drop you to 2. It's not enough by itself. But then there's, of course, still a turn of Cataclysm. And I think this is pretty clearly something that we want to do. That much we can pretty much say for certain. Then I think it is this. So we do want the Madocs back out, because that's where we're getting most of the points from. It's just the bodies on the Madoc, more so than the actual Cataclysm. Take a little bit of time for them all to come out, though. Okay, and for what it's worth, Orianna did get hit. Okay, and now go fair into Beast, which is not the highest card, so it will get boosted. Orianna is now a 2. And if we use Marching Orders, we could get out more Milvas, which means we can create an extra copy of Milva. That's nice long-term, but at this point we do need to be thinking a little bit more short-term, just to make sure that we can still, well, win this round. And then in a short round 3, I really like our chances, but this is the question, is can we still pull this off here? So we are out of Cataclysm in this row. We do still have one way to get Madoc's back, which is not a bad thing. I think we might be looking at Milva here. I think we're looking at... Well, we also want to destroy you, though. I think it might need to be guerrilla tactics here to shut you down. It's not that much of a threat anymore. Not that much of a threat because they don't have much in the way of bleeding without leader ability charges remaining here. We will need to play... Oh, this. Let's get these guys back out, and now we do have a death blowable target, which obviously we won't have time to do right now, but does mean we would technically like to play one more turn, but at this point, I mean, maybe they think if this is Regis that they have enough to get the job done. But no, they don't. So we will hold off their bleed attempt here. We'll have 1 card advantage going into round 3, and most significantly, we still have 9 Madocs carrying over. Do we have any Milvas in our deck anymore? No, we will lose our Milvas unless we want to... I mean, we could get both death blows here if we're willing to play probably Malena. She is specifically here for Milva synergies. Debatable with no leader abilities to help set them up, and having to play Milva in order to get them back. I don't think that's worth going that route. And it does mean that now what we're looking for more than anything is just a whole bunch of bombs. And we have still several in our deck, and that is why Arcane Tome is here. So that if they play bombs as well, we can just... Or if they play specials as well with Arcane Tome, we can trade and get much more value than they're getting out of it. I'd like to get at least 1 more bomb source so that we can get the Madocs out, use all the Madocs to get a bunch of Cataclysm, and then bring them back and just leave the bodies on the board for points. Vrihedd Dragoon is not very useful without Milva. Here is the bomb we're looking for. Nivellen, kind of same story there. Okay. Can use Dol Blathanna Sentry plus Malena to just give ourselves more points, so that's not a terrible option. Then marching orders at this point is going to be Vrihedd Dragoon, which we could move an ally, get extra points out of that. So, okay. Obviously nothing to target with our bombs at the moment, so why don't we lead off with the Dol Blathanna Sentries, I think? And we'll go... I mean, we could go melee row for damage when combined with Milva, but I think we obviously have some damage from our bombs and forthcoming Madocs. Okay, Gels. What are they playing with him, though? Imlerith, which is a point slam. How good of a point slam? Not a very good one at all. Okay, that's kind of odd, in truth. So we'd like to get Malena down here as quickly as possible, I think. Malena, first turn we actually won't have anything great to do with her, so we don't really want to move these sentries. They'll just forfeit here. They don't think they can catch us. The Madocs were too strong. Alright, so going up against Northern Realms here, and we'll go first. Okay, and so we have Royal Decree, which we could use to get Idarran to create the additional copies of cards, and then we have Madoc, which is a card that we would like to create all those copies of, and Marching Orders can give us Milva, which is another card we'd like to create the additional copies of, so that's great, but we still need a Siegfried to purify them so we can actually use them, and we can do that with Curse Scroll, make sure to get him that way, or we can try to, of course, mix some things around here and see if we'd happen to draw into one. That would be nice. Alzur Double Cross actually is a way to get Siegfried, so yeah, that does work for us. Stygga Castle is another way to move cards around, but I actually think we may... we'll keep it. We'll keep it. We'll keep it. Okay. So, first things first. I think we would like to go for the guaranteed Idarran with Royal Decree, because Idarran and Siegfried are tied for our highest powered unit, so this is a 50-50 at the moment, whereas this is a sure thing. And once we use Idarran, that means now this is guaranteed to give us Siegfried, so this is now a certain thing as well. So we do that, and I'm deliberately going in the melee row because although that means 1 fewer Idarran, our biggest bottleneck is actually our row space, not our Idarran count, unless they're about to damage our Idarrans, but who knows? So it's Curach City Guard. I mean, if they move our Idarrans, that could actually help us, for what it's worth. I imagine. I imagine they're probably not about to do that. At least not about to move them in a way that helps us, because we are about to move them ourselves, and it's a question of, are we going to follow up with creating the Madocs or creating the Milvas? I think this time we might go for the Milvas. It's going to be hard against Northern Realms, though, to get 1-powered cards for Milva to go after, because yes, when they spawn in cards, usually they'll be 1 power, but Northern Realms, more so than really any other faction, has the ability to get, just clearing out row space now, but more ability than really anyone else to immediately boost stuff. I am going to try it, though. I am still going to try it, though. So here's the thing. We don't want to use these order abilities yet. I mean, obviously we can't get the death blow unless we sacrifice some order abilities here. But even if we could trigger the death blow, we don't want to use it yet because we need to purify with Siegfried first. And this is why I was saying we need to kind of make up our mind. Do we want this to be primarily a Milva match or primarily a Madoc match? Because, we don't have the board space for both of them unless stuff gets destroyed. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Milvas. Of course, these Gerharts are theoretically capable of doing some things here. Tax boosts, but is not really a way to shut down Milva. Does get things more out of Milva removal range, though, which is unfortunate. As I was saying, that is perhaps a concern against Northern Realms in particular, but it's generally, I find, easier to pull off the Madoc combo, and for the sake of at least trying the Milva combo, that's why I'm doing it here, and it'll be an extra challenge, especially because it's going against Northern Realms. But here's the thing. We'd like to create additional copies of Madoc, yes. However, we just don't have the board space to do that and still play Siegfried, and we must play Siegfried to remove the Doomed. So it's basically just going to be Siegfried now. Purify all the Milvas. And now the thing is, we're going to need to get the... Now we do want to trigger those death blows. We don't have great options for that yet. Unless we, as I said, just sacrifice some of these damaging order abilities and accept the fact that they're not going to get death blow and only a few will. But we'd like to wait to see if they play something smaller. Like the 1-power Scribe is an easy target. So we'll definitely go after you. Does give us a little bit of space here. And that actually means with Dancing Star, we could get you into removal range of another Milva. Obviously, we don't have Madoc on the board in our deck or in our graveyard yet, so we're not going to get him out when we do that, but we're trying to... Ideally, what we would do is clear out a little bit more board space so it's theoretically possible to get Madoc out. It's just not feasible at the moment, so we do this and get a little more of the death blow going. So now we have saved 2 Milvas back into our deck, but these are all vulnerable. Unlike Madoc, if they get destroyed, they are not coming back. Alright, so now we have another easy death blow here. The trickier part becomes now with the bombs that we do have available to us, Northern Wind just outright removes you. So that's not perfect. There is some room to play Madoc now. The ones that we spawn in from the Idarrans will, of course, gain Doomed, and since we've already used Siegfried, we can't remove that Doom, so if we use the order ability on those Madocs, they'll just get permanently destroyed. Still get some damage from the order ability, but at that point, you might as well just keep the bodies on the board, unless you really need the board space. So, I mean, we could sacrifice some Milva order abilities. Basically, this quantity of Milvas is very much overkill, which is why usually I do prefer going the Madoc route, but maybe we... Oh, we do need to play something this turn, though. We do need to play something this turn. So tell you what, yeah, we'll do it. Debating, using the Milvas to sacrifice some order abilities. Ooh. Well, obviously, we're going to go after Ciri. This one's an easy target. This one, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Milvas left, we can theoretically destroy you. It means we're sacrificing 4 Milva orders, though, unless we go making a bomb, which actually would get, well, all the other Milvas out. And the ones that we tried to hide back into our deck, and that's, again, what makes Milva tough. When you do get them out, every time you move something, you want to try to get the death blows to get them back. So let's go Northern Wind here, because it drops you down to a 1, which means easy removal territory for one of these Milvas, and don't need to risk getting other Milvas out from our deck. So at this point, we've gotten many of them back. Technically speaking, the pacing here is not right, so they should pass. Honestly, we might be okay with that, because we're basically building our entire deck around carryover. So if we have to go card down, we will. Okay, that shield is annoying. Because yes, there's a 1 power card here, but it has a shield, so, I mean, is this an opportunity for us to just... Do we sacrifice one of these Milva's orders to get rid of the shield, and we do get the death blow on the other? Maybe. Maybe we go Stygga Castle here and get a Cat Witcher out, which could help us deal a little bit more damage. And the Adrenaline 3 would be active, so some somewhat significant damage at that. We'll do it. We'll do it. And in fact, it should mean that, well, first, technically speaking, do this. Put this Milva back into our deck, which means we do this. And we actually have room for additional Cat Witchers now. In fact, they're going to clog out all the space in which we were going to play the original Cat Witcher. So our rows are completely full. These Cat Witchers all have Doomed, so they are not going to be moving at all, and they're not going to be, well, I guess we weren't going to have any way to carry them over anyway. But, all the Adrenalines are active. They can't move. They still deal damage even if they can't move. So we are fine here. Yes, they'll get the boost from those Garrick City guards, but we can pass and get additional damage here. Okay, so we still have Madoc in hand. Technically, there is some reason to have him in hand. If we play him from hand, we'll create an additional copy of him. Won't have Doomed on that one. That's just coming from +1. So that means a little more carryover from Madoc. So that's not a terrible option. Obviously, it means, as we saw in round 1, we aren't going to get him out when we play a bomb, and we did play a lot of bombs in round 1. We should still have, I think, a few hanging out in our deck, and we have some remaining in our hand as well. But let's get rid of, say... I mean, these are all movement support cards to help get our, well, Milva's out from our deck. But I think that's probably still a better balance. So the question is, do we play here in round 2? Because we won round 1, but we played an extra card to do so. And so, if we do play Madoc from hand, it's, again, an opportunity to duplicate Madoc, which would be nice, but tempo-wise, obviously not really going to be enough to cause them much trouble here. So, however, we do like short rounds. We do like short rounds, so maybe we do bleed them out a little bit here and use our bombs to get the Madocs back out, and that way, at the very least, we are forcing a shorter round 3 in which we'll just basically use something like Malena to move one of their cards, or one of those other movement cards that we moved back into our deck, and just get all the Milvas out immediately, and use that as our big source of tempo. Love the Damsel in Distress, but this Redanian Knight, can we mess with it? Unfortunately, the Madocs happen to go in the melee row. However, we could move the Madocs with Stygga Castle, and then trigger the order abilities here and get rid of this, at least the armor on the Redanian Elite. So that's kind of tempting. I think we probably will opt to do that, to tell you the truth. Is there anything we'd like to play first? No, I think we do this. Except I meant to do this. Yeah, ideally would have had 2 turns worth of it, but you know. Ideally would have 2 turns in the range row. Order of operations not quite right there. I mean, also, making bomb works too, but if we move anything, we're getting all the Milvas out, and rather not do that yet. Except that's still... Okay, these cards look too similar. Because I could have sworn I clicked on making a bomb. Or rather, could have sworn I clicked on Samum. And I was going to say, it works because there's no other cards that were going to get moved, because there's nothing adjacent to it. But okay, we might at this point be going for the 2-0, because I did not intend to get those Milvas out, and yet here they are. This was supposed to be something we were going to save. Then again, It is now Adrenaline 3 for Gezras. We'd like to have these Milvas in our range row. They're just going to forfeit. They don't think they can handle it. So there you have it. The 2-0 push works even if we may not have entirely intended to go that route. Alright, so going up against Scoia'Tael here. And they'll go first. Okay, and so we have Madoc in hand. So that's one of the cards we'd like to create additional copies of. We have Alzur's Double Cross, which will give us either Idarran or Siegfried. We need Idarran first and then Siegfried after that to purify Madoc and or Milva. So let's try to swap some things around here. Arcane Tome might help us as well to get some more tutors happening. But there is Idarran. That fundamentally changes everything. We can now use this combo. And that's good. But we might want to also see if we can get Milva in hand as well. No, it won't happen. Their Guerilla Tactics Scoia'Tael, they are probably doing the same thing. They are doing the same thing. That's why they're playing Malena first turn. Without question. Okay. In which case, we don't have Malena, but we could certainly still benefit from making a bomb, destroying this Malena, and then using the 1 power damage from our Milva to destroy you. So, at least one of our... Yeah, we will only have 1 Milva, because we aren't playing any Milvas from hand. So, I think it's still worth going this route. Because that was an important card for them. It was going to be a way to move their Idarrans without using their leader ability. And so by shutting that down, it does make their combo a little less sustainable. Here is Idarran as expected. I really want them to move 1 more. Then we could Nivellen and just put them all back in that same row and clog them. But they don't. Is it still worth doing? Let's move 3 adjacent units, so actually we could still move these 2 that have 1 spot remaining in this row, and they have 1 leader ability charge left. I think that's too good of an opportunity to pass up. Let's see. Let's see if we can make this happen here. I will also get Milva back out, and we could trigger the death blow. Yes, however, we actually don't want to do that right now, because now the problem they have is they have all the Idarrans they could ever want. However, they only have 1 spot in this row, which means that Idarran is giving them almost no incremental value right now. We can still move 1 with Guerilla Tactics, and so they may opt to do that, but we've basically just frustrated every attempt they've made to move their Idarrans. Okay, and Stygga Castle is another way to move the Idarrans. So they are using up all of their strategies here. And now we do have something that we could remove with Milva, that being one of the Cat Witchers. So we're likely to see them use this resilient, or rather this order ability to move 3 Idarrans into this row. Then it does start to become usable for them. But what we could do is just destroy one of these guys, first and foremost. Get Milva back into our deck. And, I mean, oh, how I wish. If Gezras was on Adrenaline 3, we could just wipe out all of them. That'd be amazing, but we can't. So, they have not yet moved them. I think that means, well, this might be time for us to return the favor. Yes, this Cat Witcher specifically will just likely, not guaranteed, but likely destroy an Idarran. That's actually not a huge problem, because we have more Idarrans than we need. It's board space that is the primary limiting factor right now. So in that way, actually, losing Idarran is, in many ways, beneficial. Losing 1 Idarran. Losing more than that, then the equation starts to tilt in the other way. They'll go Snowdrop. That was their big combo they were trying to do, but they did not move their Idarrans in time to set up a bunch of Snowdrops here, so it is substantially weaker than it would normally be. This is a 300-point combo in 2 turns, usually. But no, it's a substantially worse now. We could even destroy Snowdrop if we really wanted to. They did move their Idarrans, But at this point, it is perhaps a little bit too little too late because, well, they don't have much more space to work with here after flooding a bit with Stygga Castle and a preemptive Snowdrop. So at this point, I think we will still proceed with our plan here of moving our Idarrans with our leader ability here, and then creating additional Madocs. Rather than Snowdrop. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Madocs. The ones that have doomed can get destroyed by this Cat Witcher potentially, or whatever damage they might be about to pull out here. Which is why we would love to get Alzur's Double Cross into Siegfried to purify the Doom statuses as quickly as possible. Yennefer Conjurer is not enough yet to destroy. Well, they might have enough of them. Ooh, okay. Okay, everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is sort of fine. So we can't use these Madoc order abilities until we remove Doomed. We could technically do it with these. But they forfeit. They have realized that we have countered Idarran with Idarran, would have purified with Siegfried, with Alzur's Double Cross, and then we could use all the Madocs we'd like, and then they were toast. So we'll take the win. So there's a look at a Scoia'Tael deck for the new +1 seasonal event. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions you'd like us to experiment with next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.